Hello, amazing humans. Let's take the next 5 minutes and wake up our entire spines. All right, so a lot of aches and pains in the back, neck, and shoulders can be alleviated when we remind our brains that we have an entire spine that can move, so our brains have the chance to be able to reorganize our movements in a more efficient, pain-free way. So let's dive into some gentle movements to wake our spines up. All you need is to sit at the edge of a chair, feet flat on the floor. And in this position, simply take a look up towards the ceiling, however you would do it, and simply take a look down in between your knees, down at the floor somewhere. And just do this movement a few times, nice and slow. Don't go to your max, but just notice what parts of you are moving, what parts of your spine aren't moving, and how far can you see comfortably. Remember, we're not going for the stretch. We're going for quality movements to help our brain reorganize our whole bodies. All right, so if you're like me and you're noticing pretty much just the top part of your spine moving, to take a look down and take a look up, noticing a little bit of my middle spine, but not much. So let's use some gentle movements to wake everything up. Let's first bring our brain's awareness that we have a pelvis that can roll. I like to think of our pelvis like a ball. So imagine your pelvis like a ball that's sitting on your chair, and gently and slowly begin to roll your pelvis back to put more pressure onto your tailbone, and then roll your pelvis forward to stick your tailbone out behind you. And as you do this movement, nice and slow, don't go to your max. Remember, we're looking for quality of information, not quantity. You're rolling gently back and gently forward, and just notice what part of your spine is moving now that your pelvis is rolling a little bit back and a little bit more forward. So maybe you're starting to notice your lower spine beginning to wake up, has the possibility of movement. You can also accentuate this movement by placing your hands on your hips. Some people find this really helpful, so their brain becomes even more aware of how their pelvis can roll in 3 dimensions when their hands are on their hips, so you can give that a try. Explore that. And as you're rolling, putting more pressure onto your tailbone, notice what parts of your spine are moving, as well as what's your head doing. And rolling to stick your tailbone out, what does your head want to do? And rolling to tuck your tailbone under, what does your head want to do? So as I roll under, my head wants to take a look down at the floor. And as I'm rolling my pelvis forward, sticking the tailbone out, my head seems to want to look up at the ceiling. So go ahead and do that if that feels natural for you. So as you're rolling your pelvis back, putting more pressure onto your tailbone, your spine is being pulled down by your pelvis and your head as well. Remember, all of our parts are connected, and we're helping our brain coordinate all of these delicious pieces. So continue to roll your pelvis backwards and forwards at your own pace, feeling what parts of your spine are waking up, as well as if you feel called to move your head gently, looking down as your pelvis rolls back, and looking up as your pelvis rolls up. You go ahead and do that. Go at your own pace, find your own rhythm. Feel what can you let go of as you're doing the movement. How can you make this movement feel easy, joyful? And that's great. You can just let that all go and just rest. Notice how you're sitting now. Do you feel any difference in the length of your spine and how you're sitting? Maybe your shoulders are hanging different. Now let's wake up this middle section of our spine. So gently place your hands on your sternum, and in this position, begin to roll your pelvis back, placing more pressure onto your tailbone. You might feel called to sink your head down to look towards the floor, and then roll your pelvis forward to stick your tailbone out, and feeling what's going on underneath your hands. Can you feel that sternum bone slide up as you're rolling forward, looking up towards the ceiling? And as you're rolling backwards, what do you feel under your hands? Do you feel your sternum and ribs sinking down, down, down as you're looking down, curling into a little ball? Roll the pelvis forward, feel the spine pushing up, 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 sternum rising, looking up towards the sky. Again, continue this movement, go at your own pace, go nice and slow, really cueing into what's happening underneath your hands. Do you feel that sternum sliding as you're rolling your pelvis? Can you feel any more of your spine participating in the movement? Maybe you're noticing your middle spine starting to wake up to the possibility of helping this movement. Curling everything under as you roll your pelvis underneath you and extending upwards as you roll your pelvis forward. And that's great. You can just let everything go and rest for a minute. Notice how you're sitting now, the length of your spine, where your head is in relationship to your pelvis, what's changed for you. And now take your left hand and place it on your right shoulder. And in this position here, as you start to roll your pelvis under, tucking your tailbone underneath you, start to look down towards the floor. But this time, take a look to the left of you, a little bit to your left. Feel your left hand pulling your right shoulder a little bit across you, sinking down to where it's comfortable for you, and then begin to roll your pelvis up. Notice where your shoulder wants to go in space. It's coming back to the right side of you, and take a gentle look up towards the ceiling, and then repeat that movement of tucking your tailbone underneath you. Notice where your shoulder wants to go. Take a look down to the left side of you, just nice and gentle, down at the floor, and repeat that movement, nice and gentle and slow. And bring your brain's awareness to what's happening with your right shoulder. Where does your right shoulder go? Where do the ribs on your right side, how do they expand and contract? Where are they moving to? What's happening with the middle of your spine? Are you starting to feel the connection between the shoulder, the ribs, the middle spine? The possibilities that might be there to help you roll your pelvis forward, coming up to look through the center, feeling that shoulder blade sliding, and then rolling your pelvis underneath you, turning just a little bit to look down to the left side. Find your own rhythm. And that's great. You can let that go and change hands. So place your right hand on your left shoulder and feel immediately if it feels a little bit different. And in this position here, as you roll to tuck your pelvis underneath you, sitting more on your tailbone, turn to look to the side of your right at the floor, sinking down, and then rolling the pelvis forward, coming up through the center, taking a look up at the ceiling, and then continue that movement of curling into yourself, rolling to put more pressure onto your tailbone, taking a look to the right of you now, and just feeling what parts of you have to move to make this movement happen. What can you let go of to make this movement easier? Can you feel the sliding of the ribs on the left side? Can you feel any movement in your shoulder blade? Can you feel any more movement in your middle spine? Is your brain becoming more aware of all the different body parts that might be possible to move to make this movement easier, more fluid, more comfortable for yourself? That's wonderful. And then you can come back to your neutral, just let everything go. Feel how you're sitting in the chair now. Feel where your shoulders are. Do your shoulders feel lower? Does your chest feel broader? Maybe you feel taller. Maybe you're more aware of your spine. Whatever's true for you, just notice. And then go back to the very first movement of simply taking a look down towards the floor and up towards the ceiling, and just notice if anything's changed about this movement. What has your brain been able to piece together, all of the little tiny quality missing pieces that your brain just sort of forgets about, and you were able to wake your brain up to new possibilities of how to move your entire spine, your pelvis, your whole spine, your head, your neck, your ribs, your sternum, to make the movement more efficient, more comfortable, more joyful, more pleasurable, with less pain. So if you notice a difference, let me know down below. I love hearing from you. This is another simple combination that you can try anywhere, anytime. So I hope you take inspiration from it and try some of those movements throughout the day. Whenever you're starting to feel a little bit stiff or a little bit uncomfortable, remember to keep exploring movement. and we will see you in the next video. Okay, bye!